In this video, we're going to show you how to install the emergency brake shoe kit on your Jeep Grand Cherokee located behind your rear wheels. Using your 19mm socket, loosen and remove your lug nuts. Once you have the lug nuts removed, grab the wheel and set it aside. On the back side of our caliper here, there's going to be two rubber boots. There's going to be a little plastic cap there. I'm going to use my screwdriver and just pop that cap off. That's the cap right here. Now there's going to be one just on the top side as well. It's going to be two in total. Now that we have both of these off, on the inside of the boot is going to be the hardware we need to loosen and remove. On the inside of these rubber boots is going to be a number 7 Allen key. We need to use that to go ahead and remove that bolt. Now we're going to remove this here. We're going to set it up into the top and remove that bolt. Now our bolts are not coming out from the sleeve yet, but you can look down inside from the top and see that the threads have separated. Now on the outside of the caliper that we just unbolted on the other side, we have these spring clips or anti-rattle retainers here. Just gonna use our little pry bar. You can go in here and pop those out. Go ahead and set that aside. Now we're using a C-clamp right now on the outside pad here in the back of the caliper, and we're just going to gently give this a little bit of a push here. We're just compressing the piston into the caliper a little bit to try and break that free. Now we have that loose there, but our bolts on the back side, our Allen bolts, don't seem to be releasing completely. Now we sprayed some lubrication on this here. I'm going to turn this and pry. I'm trying to work that in. And there we have it. I'm going to go ahead and do the same to the bottom. Now that we have both of those bolts loose, we can grab that caliper and just wiggle that off. And we're just going to set this right here for now. Remove that other pad. Now I'm just going to use a securing strap. We're going to anchor this to the spring. This is going to hold the caliper up and out of the way. Remove the two 18mm bolts securing our brake caliper bracket. You can use a ratchet or a breaker bar. In our case here, we're using a bar because it's pretty tight and rusty. Once you remove that bolt, the brake caliper bracket should come off. Remove that, set that aside. Once we have the brake caliper bracket off, we can go ahead and grab our brake rotor, work this off. Remove the rotor and set it aside. Now removing our e-brake shoes is going to be two springs, one across the front section here, and it connects this spring or this shoe to this shoe. Then there's one on the bottom side over here. We're going to go ahead and remove this top one first. We're going to use a pair of needle nose pliers. We want to get behind the spring right here. We want to unhook it from this shoe. We're going to use this tool here. It looks like a flathead screwdriver, but there's a notch in the middle of it, and that can catch the spring itself. And once you get underneath it, just push it up and it hooks that spring perfect. The next thing we need to pay attention to is right here. There is a spring clip that is held in place by a pin. Now the pin itself goes through the backing plate onto the other side. And what we want to do is we basically need to push down on this and twist it because it's locked in horizontally, and then the notch is vertically on this here. And we're going to switch over to our pliers here. And we're going to grab this and we're going to push in on it and twist it. There we go. Now that we have this removed, go ahead and grab our shoe, pull that, set that aside. And there's the pin right here that comes through the backing plate. So you're going to pull that back through the back side. Now when this comes through, you can see it's shaped like a blade, and it comes through, and then you twist it and it locks into place. So when we reinstall this, we're going to have to push this through, compress the spring clip, and rotate it so it locks into place like so. Now there's two of these, one on this shoe and one on the other. Now on the bottom side here, when I removed this other shoe, the adjuster here had fallen out. But basically there's notches in this here. One goes into one shoe and then the other one goes to the other. And this is adjustable, and what it does is either expands or contracts the shoes so you get the proper adjustment for your emergency brake setting. Ours is spinning freely, which is good. It's not bound up in any manner. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. Okay, go ahead and remove this here. You can see where the other spring is hooked in. Remove our clip and then remove the pin out of the bottom. Install our pin from the back side. Now when we install our shoe, I want to make sure that the upper portion has the little notch in it here. The bottom portion is a wider notch. That is for the adjuster to fit into. And we're going to put this into the e-brake mechanism at the top here. And take your spring clip here. I want to go ahead and line up that pin so we can push this on. Now that we have that on, we just want to slide this over to the side. We're going to repeat for the bottom shoe. Now we took our adjuster and we put a little bit of anti-seize compound on those threads there. I want to make sure that this stays well lubricated and doesn't rust up and stick, because this is what's going to be adjusting the expansion of the shoes here. I'm going to slip on the end piece here. Now the way we're installing this, you want to have access to the window on the back side of the brake dust shield here, or the backing plate. Then we're going to install our spring. We have the adjuster in place and our spring in place. I'm going to install our forward spring here. All right. We have all of our springs installed. Make sure that the shoes are settled on the backing plate themselves. Before we install our caliper, we do need to address this here, make sure that it's clean and fully operational. First thing we're going to do is pay attention to our two slider bolts here, and they go into the rubber bushing here into the caliper. And we want to go ahead and pull these out. So we're using our number 7 Allen key, and what I'm doing is I'm twisting this, but I'm tilting this off to the side a little bit to put some pressure on it, and I'm pulling it out to try and get this bolt to spin out here. Once we get this one out, we're going to repeat for the other side. Now where slide pins have some excessive rust buildup on it, so you can use a file, use your wire wheel machine, anything like that to try and clean this up. This should all be smooth, but ours is a bit chunky, and this is causing resistance through our rubber bushing here, so it's not sliding like it should. So at this point here, we went ahead and cleaned up all of the rust that was on here. The sleeve itself is a lot more uniform. There's no flared rusty nuggets on there that cause resistance going into the rubber boot. Next thing you want to do is pay attention to the caliper itself. You need to look inside the rubber boot and clean out any rust that might be sitting in that. You can run a small bristle brush or something gentle that it won't tear the rubber. Clean that out in there. We also want to go ahead and push our piston back into the caliper. We're going to use an old brake backing plate here. You can use the old brake pad if you want. We're going to use a C-clamp here, and we're going to go ahead and slowly compress this in. Now what's happening here is we're basically just pushing the fluid back through into the line. And we're going to do this slowly. I'm not going to force anything. You just want to make sure this goes in nice and easy. Now, for some reason, if this piston is not going in, there's a possibility that this is frozen inside, and it's going to require a caliper replacement. But our piston is moving in, which is good. Once this piston is bottomed out, I'm going to go ahead and remove our C-clamp here. Just going to pop our securing strap off here for a moment. And we grabbed a very gentle bristle brush here, and we want to clean the ports here. All right, so with the inside of that rubber clean, ideally what we want to do is go ahead and pull the rubber out of the caliper itself. We're going to use a little pocket screwdriver, and you want to be careful when doing this here because you don't want to tear the rubber. But you can come around the back side here and basically want to start working this rubber out and away from the metal casting. Pry that rubber away from the metal, because believe it or not, the rust can actually adhere to the rubber as well. It's not going to allow you to easily remove this. Once you feel that that rubber is separated from the rusty metal, just go ahead and work that out, and you're going to push that out like so. And do the same for the other side. Now inside the holes where we just removed the rubber boot, you want to go ahead and clean off any buildup of rust inside. Sometimes it's scaly, there's some chunks in it you can scrape out. What I actually do is take a strip of sandpaper, it's a 400 grit, put it on a drill bit, and I'll actually feed this into this. Now this is just 400 grit sandpaper. It's nothing super aggressive, but as you can see, it cleans off quite a bit. Makes short work of this here, and it doesn't cause any damage to that rubber boot. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat for the other hole. Now with those ports cleaned, we're gonna use our bristle brush and just clean off anything else that'd be causing any issues later on down the road. Make sure all of our surfaces where our brake pads are going to be coming in contact with are clean and rust free. Check the surface here, make sure this is clean. If it's not clean, you can use a flat file and clean the surface of this a little bit. Same thing on this other side here where the other pad is going to be sitting. Now we're going to start our reassembly. I'm going to apply a little bit of grease to the inside of these ports. Not a lot, just a little bit to help with our rubber boots and protecting the inside from excessive rust buildup in the future. So I'm just going to put a little bit of grease inside there. All right, we got one installed. Let's get that other one installed. There we have it. Just wipe off the excess grease. Take your recently reconditioned slider pins, put some grease on those, and go ahead and work that in. And do the same for the other side. Now at this point, go ahead and slide our brake rotor on. On the back side of the backing plate, right by the ABS sensor, you're going to find a rubber plug. Go ahead and use your small flathead screwdriver. We're going to pop that out. Now through this window is the adjuster wheel for the emergency brake or the e-brake shoes that expand on the inside of the brake rotor. Now with one hand, you can go ahead and grab that rotor and wiggle it back and forth. To adjust the e-brake, you want to go ahead and use a flathead screwdriver or a similar tool to reach in and grab that adjuster wheel. And you're going to go ahead and move that. And what you want to feel is the slightest bit of resistance on that brake rotor itself. Work this a couple clicks at a time and check that tension. And that rotor has just a little bit of drag on there, which is just right. Go ahead and take your rubber plug, insert back into the backing plate. Now we're going to install our bracket. We cleaned off our threads here. We put some blue Loctite on the threads. I'm going to slide the bracket down into place. I'm going to get our bolts installed on the back side. Now I'm going to go ahead and thread these in as far as I can by hand. And take your caliper. I'm going to insert the inboard pad. I'm going to take our outboard pad and set that on our caliper bracket right there. Let's go ahead and slide this over. Let's go ahead and get our upper bolt lined up and get that threaded in. Once we have the upper bolt in, I'm going to go ahead and do the same to the lower. Now once you have both of these bolts started, you can go ahead and snug those down. You don't want to make them super tight. We're just going to snug them down for now. And we're going to come back and torque those down to position. Torque down our caliper bracket bolts to 70 foot-pounds. We're going to torque down our caliper slide pin bolts to 25 foot-pounds. Once you've done torquing this here, you want to go ahead and hop into the vehicle and you want to pump up the brakes. You want to make sure that you can compress this caliper here and get the fluid back into the caliper. If you don't do this here, when you hop into the vehicle and you start up, the pedal is going to go to the floor, and it's going to happen a couple times. So make sure you pump up that brake pedal. After about pedal pump 3 or 4, you should have a firm pedal. Install the plastic caps for your caliper slide pin boots here. Repeat for the lower. Once you have your caliper and everything in place, go ahead and install the clip right here. I'm going to push this in. This is the anti-rattle clip. Push those in. At this point here, we can go ahead and install our wheel. Okay, grab your wheel, line it up onto the studs, set it into place. We want to go ahead and install our lug nuts. Going to get them all started by hand first. Once we have these all started by hand, we'll come back and snug them down. Torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.